How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. It's almost every day now that I get a message on Discord asking me something about magic, which is of course the combat style in RuneScape that I use the most, not magic tricks. So I get quite a lot of people asking me about certain things on how they can do this and that with magic, how they can improve DPS rotations with magic, or whether they should be doing this and all that sort of stuff. Just little tips, tricks and things like that. So what I decided to do is make a video talking about the stuff that I usually seem to mention quite a bit. Now, I do not mind answering questions, so don't feel like if you have questions that you can't ask them anyway. It's like, send me a message on Discord. I don't mind whatsoever, and as soon as I can get back to you, I will. So just keep doing that. It's absolutely fine. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. But I figured if I could make a video that ends up covering a lot of the stuff people ask, I can link them this video if they haven't seen it, and that might be easier than me trying to explain it over Discord as well. So that's what we're going to be doing today, talking about specific things that you should know or that you would find pretty useful if you're using the magic combat style. There will be timestamps if I remember to put them in here, so if there's anything you already know, just skip on to the next one. Okay, so this is probably going to end up being one of those videos where we spend quite a bit of time at War's Retreat, but that's okay. Like I said, there's going to be timestamps, so you can go through those if there's anything you already know. You don't have to sit through the whole thing. But I'm going to start off with talking about, with magic, ideally, you want to be using a staff and a wand and an orb. At least you want to have those with you. If not, then you're better off just using a wand and an orb, I believe, unless you have the Staff of Armadil, in which case, in that situation, it's better to have just the staff. But ideally, you want to have both, and the reason being is a Greater Concentrated Blast is absolutely amazing. It's just so freaking good. But the main reason you want to have both is because when you switch from an orb and a wand back to your staff, you can actually 4-tick, allowing you to use auto attack and then an ability at the same time, meaning that you can deal a lot more damage than if you didn't do this. There's nothing that says you have to 4-tick if you don't want to. So if you do have the Staff of Armadil, then just camp this, because the spec's going to be better on this by a mile. And if you don't, then just camp some dual wield weapons, as that's going to be the best way for you to go. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is 4-tick auto attacking, specifically how to do it pretty much. So this shouldn't take too long, like I said with the other one, but basically you want to have a wand and an orb and a staff. That is what you need to do this, so it's important that you have all three of those, and you will be switching between them. So what I would recommend you do is have comfortable key bindings so you can switch between them nice and easy, and also you need to have the spell that you want to 4-tick with, which I use Blood Barrage normally. You want to have that keybound as well. The reason I use Blood Barrage is because it scales up to level 99, and also it's really good for AoE. You can change that to Exsanguate if you wanted to, which is a lot cheaper than using Blood Barrage, but you used to be able to use Blitz spells, but once you have the tier 95, it makes sense to use anything above Blitz because that only scales level 92, so you will be losing out some damage. Once you've got these keybounds, you've got your wand and your orb and your staff and the spell you want to 4-tick with, all keybound. The next thing you need to do is start off with your wand and your orb, cast an ability on the target, any ability that is not a channeled ability, so you cannot use Greater Concentrated Blast and you cannot use Asphyxiate. Once you've cast that ability, you want to change to your staff, and then you will notice once the global cooldown resets that all of your abilities will flash. When it flashes like this, that is your indicator to use an auto attack, which is the keybind that you set here. So for me with my Blood Barrage, as soon as I see this flash here, you want to press the keybind for your Blood Barrage and then use an ability straight away. So the way this looks is something like this. You'll see here those 2 hits as soon as I've used my staff. So you'll see me swap to my staff, and then you'll see 2 hits come, and it more or less at the same time. The way this works is when you change from wand to staff, it allows you to force a auto attack here, but you want to use it on the global cooldown straight away, and then use your other ability. This forces out the auto attack, and you can do this every time. So as soon as you've gone from your wand and orb to your staff and done the 4-tick, you can go straight back to your wand and orb, use another ability, and then back to the staff to do it again. So this actually allows you to fire off a lot more auto attacks than normal, increasing the damage you would normally be able to output. It is quite a lot of clicks, which is why it's important to have the really comfortable keybinds, but if you can get this down, it is really important, and it can be used in a lot of other situations as well, when you can force out things like Smoke Cloud during the rotations and stuff without having to just stand there waiting for the timer. It allows you to do a lot of different stuff, which we'll probably talk about later in the video as well. Next up, we have something with Detonate that is super useful to use, and it will help you clear AoEs, it will help you do more damage on like certain ticks, and it will allow you to do things like break free of Telos' tendrils, for example, at high end ranges really easily, and it's just a really useful thing to know. What it's going to be is releasing detonate with an auto attack and an ability at the exact same time, meaning you can do a lot of damage in 1 second. The best way I could sort of give you an example of where this would be really useful is probably Araxi. When the core comes out of Araxi, or the acid thingy, or it bounces around, you can charge up a detonate, and as soon as it's about to come out, release this with a wild magic and an auto attack, and you can almost finish off Araxi in that one tick just there. The way this works is you will obviously need to get some adrenaline, so we'll build up our adrenaline here. And of course, you'll have to have keybinds set up for this as well. So you'll have to have your detonate set up and the ability you want to use set up as well. And of course, you'll have to have an auto attack keybinding too, which you probably would have set up if you were already doing your 4 ticking and stuff too. So the way this works is you want to be on a staff because you'll do more damage with your auto attack that way. Then you charge up your detonate. And you can see here, my detonate is set to Shift W. And I have my barrage set to Shift E, and then I've got my wild magic set to Shift R. So once you charge your detonate, the way you want to release this is auto attack, detonate, and then wild magic. So it looks like this. You can see all the attacks stacked up at the same time, and there's a lot of damage done all at the same time as well. So you have to release the auto attack, then the detonate, and then the wild magic, but you have to be really quick. The reason that I've got my abilities set up like this, where I've got wild magic again here rather than just using S, is because it makes it a lot faster and a lot smoother for me to be able to just hold down the Shift key and then literally press E, W, and R, and it'll all happen nice and easy. I also have things set up that I'll use otherwise too, so like I've got Dragon Breath twice here, so I can use that nice and easy, so Shift E, Shift W, and Shift A. Then I've also got my Essence of Finality here from the on Shift Q, because that way I can just press Shift E, W, and Q, and it does a lot of damage. And I just pretty much just use those 3 things, as well as Tsunami on Shift 8, and it just means that I can release this with Detonate really easily, and it removes the struggle of having to be as quick as you need to be, because you have to be really fast to do this. So I would recommend setting up your abilities like this, but if you are fast enough without it, then that's absolutely fine. But like I say, make sure you've got your adrenaline charged up, charge your Detonate, and then release the auto attack, then the Detonate, and then the ability, all at the same time pretty much. Like, it'll be so fast after each other, so you can't sort of press it like really slowly. It has to be really quick. Next up, I just wanted to talk about what the new spells do, really. Insight Fear and Exsanguinate are really useful, and they're kind of important to understand exactly what they do, as it will be something that you will be using in certain situations a lot, and it's a question I get so much. Like, people ask me all the time, should I use Exsanguinate or should I use Insight Fear? So we're going to talk about that now because, like I say, it's something you want to know. Insight Fear has the opportunity to give you a little bit of AoE damage, but also it'll give you a really cheap adrenaline cost on Tsunami. I believe 40% is what you need at the max stacks. So how it works is every time you use an ability while this is active, you will see here that I get stacks of Glacial Embrace, which is it's Insight Fear. There's stacks of Insight Fear. That's the easiest way to talk about it. For every stack you get, it's going to reduce the amount of adrenaline cost that Tsunami does need. 5 stacks is the max it can get to, and then you can see here, now that I'm on 100% adrenaline, if I use Tsunami, I go down to 70%. That's not right. The reason it was on 70% is because I crit when I use Tsunami, so it allowed it to be to give me a little bit of adrenaline back, but that's okay. So don't worry about that. So normally it would take you down to 60% adrenaline, but that's why it's really good for that. And also Tsunami is a super useful ability, right? What it does is every time you crit, you will get yourself 10% adrenaline, and that lasts for 30 seconds. This, paired with things like tendrils, can be freaking ridiculous for the adrenaline gain. So for example, again, let's just have a quick check. We use Tsunami, we go down to 70% because we crit. Then if we used, like, chuck some abilities off here, every time I crit, I'm going to gain adrenaline back. You'll see here, if I crit with this, I get 10% adrenaline, but it means that you can constantly have high adrenaline. But then you can pair this with tendrils. If you're overloaded and using your prayer, it will always crit. So you can use that, and you'll see my adrenaline will fly back up, like, really quickly. So paired with a Fractured Staff of Armadillo, Insight Fear becomes the best spell to use. It is really good. It will give you almost unlimited adrenaline in some situations, and it allows you to fire off ridiculous amounts of specs and abilities to get the most out of your staff spec. That being said, if you don't have this and you are just camping dual wield, it probably will be better for you to just use Exsanguinate for most people. Ideally, the best thing you can do is switch from Insight Fear to Exsanguinate once you've used Tsunami, but again, it's not that necessary to do. What exsanguinate will do is it will build up stacks the same way that Incite Fear does. You'll see here that it goes up. However, this will go up to a total of 12 stacks. Once you get to the max of 12 stacks, you will see that you do get a new ability called Rack and Ruin. This will replace the standard rack, and what this does is it will hit a hell of a lot higher, and it will also increase the duration of your combustibility by 2 hits. Now, this is really good because obviously if you can use Rack and Ruin first and then use your combust, you're going to be doing a lot more damage. You'll get an extra 439 hit twice. Obviously, you can walk that on other bosses too, and you can get that buffed up by prayers and metamorph and all that sort of stuff. You can actually end up doing a lot more damage with this. Not only that, every time you get a stack with exsanguinate, your basic abilities will deal increased damage by 1%. So you can get a 12% damage increase on all your basics while you have all these stacks built up. That being said, if you cast the ability Rack and Ruin, it will take your 12 stacks away. You'll just have to weigh up the cost of using that in comparison to the extra damage that you get, or the extra damage you can deal from Rack and Ruin. From what I can tell, it is usually better to just use Rack and Ruin and then rebuild your stacks up, and then along the way you'll be getting 4%, 5%, 6% increased damage as well anyway. This is what you normally want to be using when you're just doing normal bosses, single target stuff, nothing like elite dungeons, just because it's going to be more damage than just camping Incite Fear. That being said, if you can combine them together and use Incite Fear, get your Tsunami off, and then swap to Exsanguinate, you will be getting the most out of it that you can. But even I don't do that when I'm working with Staff of Armadyl and stuff. It's just too much effort. I just, can't bother with it. But like I say, if you want to do that, you will get more out of it, and it is ideal to do so. But the easiest way to look at this is if you're doing single targets, then just use Exsanguinate. If you're doing multiple targets, AoE, then use Incite Fear. But without the Staff of Armadyl, there's not really much point to use Incite Fear other than to build Adrenaline if you really need to. The next thing I wanted to talk about, which is really useful, is Tank Armor and Animate Dead. You can take advantage of this, especially as someone who is learning PvM, and I use it all the time anyway, because it just makes it a lot more casual, a lot more chill when you're doing PvM, and way less punishing. Now what it does is you can use Animate Dead while you have Tank Armor on, and it will work out the armor rating, and it will give you a buff that will give you flat damage reduction based on your armor rating and your defense level. Now the way this works is every time I take any damage, it will take this number here directly off of that. So if I take 1000 damage, it will take 332 off of it. Now this is really freaking useful because obviously that's a lot of damage taken, especially if you're taking lots of small hits. Crit Bloom armor at the moment is ridiculously strong, and a lot of people will say it's really overpowered, and I wouldn't really disagree with them, but at the same time I don't think it's overly overpowered. I think it just stands out a lot more because Magic specifically has it. But basically I'll get damage reduction, and then I'll get other stuff as well, and it just makes tanking so freaking easy. But the main thing to talk about here is Animate Dead, as you can use this with Ganodermic armor too. So if I search in here, you'll see here that I still get 278 damage reduction just using Ganodermic armor, which is still really good. Obviously I don't get the effect of the Crit Bloom armor, but 278 damage reduction is still really good. Now this scales with the armor rating you get, of course, like I said. So if you have a lower level tank armor, you can still use it, but it'll give you less sort of return on that. But this is really useful to use in bosses when you're learning, for example, because you can just take it a lot easier. You use less food. If you're finding that you're running out of food in the boss fight, then you can try this out and see if it'll get you through it. That being said, it probably would be quite useful to not get too comfortable with this. The reason being is if you get too comfortable with it, once you change back to using DPS gear, because you will lose DPS by using tank armor, you may start struggling and thinking, damn, I'm missing all that damage reduction. And so it is definitely still worth using to practice, getting used to mechanics, all that sort of stuff. But then eventually you're probably going to want to come off of the tank gear and off of Animate Dead if you are wanting to improve your kill times. So overall, if you're not fussed, you can just stick with tank gear and you'll be absolutely fine. Animate Dead is super useful, and if you do have tank gear and if you are struggling with something, chuck on Animate Dead and you will notice the difference in the boss fight. The next thing is that I just wanted to basically clarify what I meant earlier when I said that you can use Tsunami to increase your adrenaline really quickly. Now, if you are on Incite Fear, which you definitely want to be on when using this, like I said, you can get yourself to 40% adrenaline, and that should be enough for you to be able to cast Tsunami straight away. So you can see I'm on 42%. If I cast Tsunami here, I'm going to get the buff where if I get crits, I can go straight up really quick on adrenaline. Now, Tendrils is a guaranteed crit, right? So if we drink this and use our prayer and then cast Tendrils, now you'll see our adrenaline will just fly up really quickly. Now, it gives 10% every hit. However, if you have a Staff of Armadillo as well, and you add these together, you can actually get auto attacks as well. And if they crit, you will also get the adrenaline from that crit as well. So your adrenaline can go from 0 all the way up really, really fast to 100, and you can just stay there. Because if you start casting things like wild magic or anything and it crits, that will cost way less, or it can even give you adrenaline. You can cast Asphyxiate and end up with more adrenaline than when you started, assuming you crit enough, which is why Grimoire is so damn good on magic as well. But you can use this in rotations even without the Staff of Armadillo. If you want to build up your adrenaline, use Tsunami, and then as long as you have enough crit chance for it to be worth it, you can do that, and you can use even just Greater Concentrated Blast, and it will increase your DPS, your adrenaline as well. Every time you get a crit, it will increase your adrenaline. One last thing to mention that is quite important to know, or quite useful to know even, is if you use Greater Chain and then Greater Concentrated Blast and you hit more than one target, every crit you land, not even just on the main target, on all the other ones as well, will also get the increased adrenaline effect as well. So you end up with a ton of adrenaline super fast, and then you can fire off all that adrenaline into Gothic Staffs, into Wild Magics, into Omni Power, other ultimates, whatever you want to use it on. You can gain adrenaline super fast with this, and it's definitely worth knowing about. The next thing I see quite a lot of people making the mistake of doing magic is they will have a ton of adrenaline and they won't know what to do with it. And that's because you do gain adrenaline pretty quick with this, especially if you're 4-ticking, because when you 4-tick, your auto casts also generate you adrenaline too. So if I don't use any abilities and I just use auto casts, you'll notice that I still get adrenaline from this. And it might be like just a little bit, but if you're getting an extra, 2% adrenaline per ability that you do because you're using auto cast as well, you actually gain your adrenaline really quick, and it's taking a little bit of cost off as well. So it all adds up. But when you've used Tsunami and you've literally just pretty much got almost unlimited adrenaline at this point because of how fast it fills up, you can use other abilities and you end up still having too much adrenaline to know what to do with it. Once you've used Wild Magic and Asphyxiate, and you may even want to use Deep Impact, and then you can use Rack if the target is stunnable, your adrenaline's still high. You can see I'm still at 84%. So what do you do at this point? Everything's on cooldown. You may have used Omni Power and you may still have too much adrenaline, right? Here I didn't land a single crit there, but that's fine. Again, I'm already back to 77%. What you want to do here in the fillers is have a Gothic Staff inside an Essence of Finality and treat that like a 0 cooldown threshold, pretty much. So what you can do is every second ability, you can use this, you can spam this off. You don't want to just stand there spamming it because it does have a cooldown in a sense that you can't just spam it over and over again. You have to wait between. So it's best to use something like Greater Concentrated Blast and then the Gothic Staff spec, and then use another ability and then use the Gothic Staff spec again. So you can rotate between these and you can get a lot of damage out of the Gothic Staff spec. So if you have extra adrenaline and you just don't know what to do with it, the Gothic Staff is always a good choice. Throw that thing out there, get rid of your adrenaline, and do as much damage as you can. So don't stand around wasting like all your adrenaline sat at 100% not doing anything, because that adrenaline can translate into a lot of damage that you could be doing instead. The next useful thing to know is once you are doing things like elite dungeons or anything that requires quite a bit of AoE, magic has incredible AoE or incredible like mob clear. It's really good. And that's because of Greater Chain, right? You already have a lot of AoE anyway with Dragon Breath and Detonate and Tsunami. There's so much good stuff, right? But if you add in Greater Chain, everything's going to get hit twice from those AoE abilities. But not only that, you can do a lot of damage with other stuff too. So not only can you use Greater Chain and Wild Magic, the best thing you could probably do to clear a room that has mobs that aren't all grouped up together is use Greater Chain and then use an Omni Power. If you can use an Omni Power with this new cape, you end up doing a hell of a lot of damage, as you just saw, to everything that gets connected to. Another cool thing you can do is if everything is packed tightly together, you can Greater Chain and Detonate. The reason you want to do this is because the Detonate will hit everything in the area like it normally does, but then everything Greater Chained will also take a second hit from the damage from the first one. So you end up dealing a hell of a lot of damage in such a small area. And it'll look something like this. So those two abilities together do a hell of a lot of damage. But then if you tie that in with the Detonate trick that I showed you guys earlier, and you use Detonate with Greater Chain and then a Tsunami, you can clear most stacks of mobs in one set of abilities almost instantly. Okay, so the final thing that I want to go over is something I get asked a lot, and I want to make very clear that this is probably not the absolute best way to do it, and this is just how I do it. What I am talking about is specifically my Fractured Staff of Armadillo spec rotation. This is literally just what I do. It is not necessarily going to be the best, and it may be far from the best. However, people always ask me, and of course, I will always answer every chance I get, as long as I know that it does give a little bit of improvement on what they are doing. If they have no idea, then obviously having some sort of baseline is obviously an improvement. That being said, there will be improvements on this, and it will take practice, and there's also a lot of things that you will do differently depending on the situation. So this is going to be a baseline of it. However, like I say, it will change depending on what's happening, depending on your adrenaline, depending on what boss you're fighting, all that sort of stuff. Okay, so keep in mind that, and let's go into what I do. So you always start the fight with 100% adrenaline, depending on where you are, of course, but most of the time you'll have your Wars Crystal, you'll go in, you'll start the fight 100%, that's what you want to do. Okay, to start off, make sure you got your buffs on, and you've got your Tsunami ready, you got your Grimoire ready as well, and then from here, all you want to do now is make sure you got your Ring of Vigor on, drop your Smoke Cloud on the boss or whatever target to start the fight, and then use Sunshine and Adrenaline Potion straight away. So you're going to Smoke Cloud, Sunshine, Adrenaline Pot, and then you want to go straight into building adrenaline. Make sure you get a Gred Concentrated Blast in here so you can get the damage, the stats required for Tsunami. And then drop the Tsunami, Gred Concentrated Blast again to get your adrenaline up. And then back to the staff with a 4-tick and staff spec. And then instantly Tendrils if you have the adrenaline. If not, you want to Limitless and Tendrils. Use all of the Tendrils hits, don't waste any of it. Wild Magic, Omni Power, and then back to Greater Concentrated Blast to build up your adrenaline very quickly again. From here, it depends what you've got. If you've got high adrenaline like I have here, chuck on a Armadillo Battle Staff Essence of Finality and just go crazy. If your adrenaline just seems to drop quite a bit, like you'll see here on 22%, and if you don't build up any adrenaline from here, you're going to want to go back to doing things like Asphyxiate or other abilities like that. If you get really low adrenaline, swapping back to Great Concentrated Blast isn't an issue to build up your adrenaline quickly, as it gives 3 quick hits, and of course it has a really high crit chance. And getting those crits off while Tsunami is available is going to increase your adrenaline very quickly, so you can get straight back to spamming that Armadillo Battle Staff. That is what I do, and I know that that was really quick, so if you want to slow down the video, watch what I do, and just go through it like that. But I hope that does help some people understand it. Like I said, I know it's very fast, but basically you want to just get your Tsunami off as soon as you've done Sunshine, go into your staff spec, then use Limitless and Tendrils. I assume you've got Limitless because you've got a 5-bill staff, 6-bill staff, whatever it is. Use Limitless and Tendrils. That will fire your adrenaline right up, and make sure you use all of the Tendrils as well. And then after that, it's just Wild Magic, Omni Power, Armadillo Battle Staff. If adrenaline drops, that's when you use Asphyxiate or Greater Concentrated Blast if you need to build it back up from 50%. Otherwise, just Armadillo Battle Staff the living hell out of whatever you're attacking until your spec is gone or your Tsunami is gone. Like I say, I hope that helps, and there's going to be so many different ways that people do it. I just do it this way, and it seems to work absolutely fine most of the time. Sometimes you won't crit, sometimes you will. But yeah, if anyone else has anything that you do and you know is better, then let me know in the comments, because this is a learning opportunity for me as well. Anyway, guys, that's going to be the end of this video. I hope you did find this useful, and I hope it has helped any of you out. If there's literally 1 or 2 people that this has helped out, then I'll be very happy. Let me know in the comments if there's some stuff you learnt and anything that you have to add from the people who are pros of Magic as well, because I have so much to learn with this too. I am not claiming to be the best with this. I am absolutely not. So share any other stuff in the comments that I could learn from too, and other people can learn from. That'd be absolutely awesome. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Thank you all so much to my channel members for the extra support. Of course, as always, your names are on screen right now, and it is very much appreciated. If anyone else is interested in joining the channel members, click the join button by the sub button, and you can see what perks you get while supporting the channel. Otherwise, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you all in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye.